Problem is similar to exercise 10.1, but let's assume that we have a loan balance of $50,000 and I have annual payments of $5,400. I completely made these numbers up. And let's also say that we have an interest rate of, I don't know, 5%. Okay, so to calculate the interest, it's principal, so I'm going to take the 50,000 times the rate, and that's 0.05, times the time of, and if these are annual payments, it's going to be times 12 divided by 12, which obviously I didn't need to do because 12 divided by 12 is 1, but if it was a monthly payment, you're going to take it times 1/12. It was semi-annual payment, etc. So $2,500 is my interest. If of my payment $2,500 is interest, then the remaining portion of it is principal. So I have $2,900 in principal, and so my loan balance is 50,000 minus the 2,900. My loan balance is 47,100. My principal then is the principal, which is now 47,100 times 0.05 times 12 divided by 12. Again, I might skip doing the 12 divided by 12 on the next one, but if I have 5,400 minus the interest, I have 3045 paying off on my principal, so the 47,100 minus the 3045 gives us 4055. And then let's just do the third one. Principal times rate times time is simply 12/12, so 2203. So I have my payment minus the amount that's principal, or interest, and the rest is principal. So my principal is now 4858. So if after 3 years I wanted to pay it off, I need to come up with $40,858. Notice what happens if I actually make a little bit more principal payments. So remember, I'll type that number out here. 4858 is our balance. But let's just say I can make an extra $200 of an annual payment. So I have $5,600. And I'm going to pull that $5,600 down, and look what happens to the balance. So I've paid off a little bit extra, but notice it's gone down, but not by 40,858 minus the 200 plus 200 plus 200 extra. The $600 extra, it's gone down by a little bit more than $600. That's because I'm paying interest on the unpaid balance, and if I can get the unpaid balance to go down more quickly, then my interest goes down a lot more quickly. Okay, so on exercise 6, it asks for the actual journal entry for it, so I'll just take the journal entry for this payment right there, so I will highlight it in blue, I guess. Okay, so on this payment, if you recall, I'm paying cash, so I'm going to credit cash. I can spell. So I'm going to credit cash for the amount of the payment, $5,600. Notice that this of the $5,600, part of it is principal and part of it is paying off the loan. So I'm going to have interest expense, or part of it is interest and part of it is reduction in the principal. So interest expense is the $2,500. And then the rest of it is paying off the note. So I have note payable or mortgage payable. I'll do mortgage payable since your book, exercise 6 does mortgage payable. And your mortgage payable is $3,100. So notice 25 plus 31 equals 56. So that's my journal entry. Notice in my next one, my cash would still be $5,600. My interest expense would be $2,345. My reduction mortgage payable would be $3,255. The third year it would be $2,182 minus the reduction in principal is $3,418, and again it's $5,600. So that should help you with exercise 1 and 6. Okay, so this one is similar to 10.8, so I've skipped 4 and 5 because they're a little different than interest. But on April 30th, the company received authorization to issue 100,000 8% bonds with interest payable on April 30th and October 31st, so twice a year. The bonds were not issued until July 1st and were issued at face. The bonds are 20-year bonds. So If I'm going to pay interest, I take principal times rate, which is 8%, times time, which is 6 divided by 12, so I've got a partial year. So I'm paying $4,000 of interest every 6 months, principal times rate times time. However, notice that they pay on April 30th, and so we issued the bonds. We are writing a check for $4,000 of interest. Okay, but what happens if the bonds are not issued until July 1st? So honestly, April 30th is the same as May, so you've got May and June. So you've got 2 months that interest wasn't paid for. So if I really compute that one, so I'm going to say, I'm going to take my accrued interest. I'm going to have my principal, which is $100,000 times 8%, but I'm going to multiply it by 2 twelfths, and so I've got let's make that shorter there. I'm going to have $1,333 of interest that is actually earned before the person has held it. So in other words, remember, I'm selling these. So I'm still going to write them a check for the $4,000. Okay, but think about this. They're getting a check for $4,000, $1,333 of that interest, they did not own it while it accrued that. So this one is the 2 months of interest for May and June because they were sold on July 1st. Okay, so if you think about your journal entry, I'm going to get cash for it. I'm going to credit bonds payable. Okay, and I'm really going to credit that accrued interest payable because I am going to pay them for that 2 months of interest. So that's the 1,333 amount. Bonds payable is always face. The face of these bonds are $100,000. So I'm going to credit bonds payable for $100,000. So look what happens to your cash that you're going to receive. In essence, what you're doing is you're charging them for that interest that they're going to get, which they didn't earn. So in other words, you're writing them a check for $4,000, which is 6 months of interest. They only earned 4 months of interest, so I'll put owed because we're talking about us. So this is owed, or they earned, so this will be the 4 twelfths, okay? So I know that $4,000 is principal times rate times 4 divided by 12. So if you look at this, that that payment is including 2 months that they didn't earn and 4 months that they did earn. So that's going to become important. But what I'm doing is I am charging them the extra amount that they didn't earn. So when it comes down to the journal entry, so notice this is July 1st when they're issued. So I sold the bonds. I have no idea why it's doing that. Hold on. So anyway, this is July 1. I can't get it to type July 1 in there when they're issued. Then notice that I'm going to pay interest on October 31st. So on October 31st, I'm actually going to pay cash. And I said that my interest payment's going to be $4,000 because I have principal times rate times time, which is 6 months. But I have interest expense of, or bond interest expense, your book calls it, of the 2,667, and then I have my accrued interest payable of the 1,333. Okay, and then what I have to do at year end, so I have December 31st. At December 31st, we have to issue a financial statement, and the matching principle says the amount of interest should be in the year it pertains to. So I know that I have 4 months of interest in there, so I have July, August, September, and October, so I have 4 months of interest, but I haven't got November and December in the correct year, whatever this year is, so 2017. So I'm going to have interest expense, and I'm not going to pay it until April 30th, so I'm going to credit interest payable. Okay, and so the formula for interest is, again, principal, which is $100,000, times rate, which is 8%, times time, which is for November and December, so 2 divided by 12. So I get the 1333, and this one's going to be the same, the 1333. So that's my December 31st, and then in April, I'll actually make this same exact entry because I'll have January, February, March, April, that's expense there. I'll have January, February, March, April for the expense, get the interest payable out and write the check for $4,000. And in October, I'll make this entry, etc.